those things didn't help me much. I was like, let me try this out.
That's possible.
Bow, 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 bow. We are going live, everybody. Okay. Okay. We are live. Hello, world.
What's up?
Oh,
So, everybody, welcome to the show. Reeses Friday Night Live. I've got Derek Robinson. If you don't know him, check out his website, IMWTuned. Derek, what is your IG?
it's D-Rob IMW.
D-Rob IMW, Innovative Motorworks. For those of you who I had a long history with you, we had a great relationship 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, long time.
You did a lot of tuning and helping me get it, like, basically hooked and addicted to this crazy hobby that I can't seem to explain to anyone. Everyone's like, why do you do that to a car?
So, yeah.
We've got Jose Mercado from Merc Racing here. I hope that's not alcohol, Jose.
No, grape juice.
We got to stay up. And we got Signal Evolve. Check out his YouTube channel, Signal Evolve. So far, we got one person on the chat already, Force Fed Red. So, Derek, thank you for joining us, man.
Thank you for having me.
This has been, something I wanted to do for a long time, actually, since the last time I went to your shop to check out so that was, and funny enough, obviously we'll talk about this later. It just sort of something happened out there that sort of forced this to come to fruition. So welcome everyone. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe. We're gonna have a good time tonight. I've got my coffee because I don't know, I'm an early bird. That's why. So we're gonna get into talking about some tuning. Derek, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about your history with tuning, maybe what got you into it, or how you came into doing what you do.
Sure. So I don't want to say I was kind of born into it, but to an effect I was. My father started a car audio shop in 2000, so 20 years ago now. And I was probably, how old was I in 2000? Maybe 12, 13, something like that. And it was right before I was of driving age, and I wasn't super into cars or modification or anything like that. But a few years down the road, I got into what he had going on here at the shop, and it just kind of snowballed from there. It's something. My dad's always had a toy car and always tinkered around with stuff, and then I became a driving age and kind of did the same. As far as like segueing into the tuning stuff, I had a kind of poor experience with a shop. They I feel like they took advantage of me when I was young and took a lot of money for really nothing. And then I ended up meeting a good friend of mine, John Kerr, who actually works here at the shop with me, and met up at the drag strip and actually raced him, and I lost to him in my first car, and went back to the pits, and I'm like, what is that? Like, what are you doing? Like, that is so cool. And he said, oh yeah, we're doing these chip DCU things and with freeware, and it just kind of snowballed from there. I befriended him, and he was a pretty big influence on me in the early days. And then it was just one of those tune my own car, tune my friends' cars, eventually tune other people's cars kind of thing.
That's great, man. So did your dad sort of just approve of your racing and all that stuff going along the way?
Yeah. I don't think they ever really disapproved of it. I mean, they didn't want me street racing, obviously. I mean, it's kind of a dangerous thing, obviously. I mean, parents don't want their kids running around the street speeding and getting in accidents and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, my father's always been very supportive. My family's been very supportive of it, and I'm very very grateful for that. I've had a chance to kind of do what I want and share my passion.
That's great, man. I think a lot of people, take that for granted when they see a young kid wanting to, race a car or something like that. And it's like, what are you doing? Johnny, get out of the street, or, don't destroy your car. But, I, when I started getting into autocrossing and, getting out of street racing, no offense, Hans, I realized that, this was legal. Like I could do anything except, obviously like wrap myself around a pole in the parking lot or something.
Right.
And it's okay. You drive home, you have your fun, and slowly but surely, like I did a lot less and less street racing. But again, it didn't make it more okay for people. They're just like, this dude is just destroying a car. But
Maybe
so
it's a little different for me too, because I was always surrounded by the culture. It was one of those things where, my father was into it, and his buddies were into it, and I saw people on a daily basis, all day, every day, that were into it. So it was kind of the norm for me, I guess.
Yeah, what's so funny? I just want to add.
Carlisle.
Wanted to add something. You were talking about your father. So like back in the day when me and my dad we had a Ford Probe, the mid-90s Ford Probe, and we modified it and we tuned on Mega Squirt, and we were just playing with it. But it's funny about street racing. It was my dad that got me into it. He used to be like, hey, let's go out to the parkway, let's race. And we'll hit like 130, 140. And I remember I almost got in an accident. I was like, Dad, like, what the hell? He was just like, oh, you just got to get better. And it's just weird. It's like my dad's the one that got me into it.
Yeah.
It's just funny, man.
It's a generational thing. It just goes right down the line now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He basically told you, you got to man up, son.
Basically.
That's hilarious, dude. All right. So Derek, you've been tuning obviously for a long time now. Your shop's been open for a very long time. When I met you, I think 12 years ago now, you were already, an established tuner in the community. I remember driving with friends here from Connecticut 4-5 hours sometimes, like, let's just go to the shop and get tuned. And those were some of the best memories. So tell us about IMWTuned or Innovative Motorworks. What's been your biggest achievement there, and what's been sort of the toughest thing about, staying alive in this environment?
Sure. So as far as like biggest achievement, I would say the biggest achievement is getting to the point after, a decade plus or whatever in the industry, that I can, I don't want to say kind of pick and choose what I do, but largely now I have the freedom, I have the client base that I can, for the most part, take on what I want to take on and refer things that I'm not really interested in to other people in the industry. I've made enough contacts, and I've been blessed the last couple of years with a growing business, and I'm very, very fortunate to have that. As far as challenges, that's a good question. Having to adopt to new platforms is probably one of the bigger challenges. I mean, I kind of laser focused in on newer Honda Acura vehicles as my specialty over the last couple of years. And it took a long time for me to realize that was a better business model than trying to be a jack of all trades. I used to have this moniker where I was this, jackass of all trades. I'll try anything, I'll do anything just to kind of get experience with it and get my feet wet with a certain platform outside of the norm. And there was a lot of growing pains involved with that. I don't want to say that it was a bad allocation of time for the first decade, but looking back at it, it almost feels like it. But you learn things as you get older. The longer you're in the industry, you find what works and what doesn't work. So I'd say that the growing pains is probably the biggest pitfall, I guess.
Right. Okay. So with that, I'm going to segue over to Honda. You say you obviously stuck with, newer Hondas, K series.
Yeah.
So we'll go over to, I gave up the Honda scene for a while.
You had a Camaro, you had a Z28 for a while, right?
No, it was almost a Z20. It was Z01.
Okay.
No. Well, I'm sorry. 1LE. There's so many different
variants,
packages, but it was basically a track packaged Camaro SS.
Right.
The heads-up display, very fun car, very capable. It's not a Honda, so the price tag was a lot higher. So it's like, I remember I wanted the MPP exhaust, and I was like, damn it. Like, I basically ended up buying it used from someone who was taking it off some car. And, Honda, things are cheap, man. People say, hey, like, I just got the gear set. For me to get a gear set for a Camaro would have been, I don't know, ridiculous money. A turbo kit for Camaro. Anyway, so that's a story for another day. But I came back to the Honda scene. Thank goodness.
Yes. Yeah. You came back.
Thank goodness. So big shock for me is with this revision of Flash Pro, and obviously a lot of things have happened, EPA, etc. I keep hitting roadblocks where I'm like, what the hell? Like a gear set, for example. We used to be able to tell K-Pro, hey, this is the new gear ratio. Now we're sort of having to sort of tweak and, figure out how to fake the signal to the ECUs, things like that. I mean, it's fun, it's learning. But besides that, can you tell me a little bit about what are the major differences between, K-Pro, maybe earlier gens of Flash Pro and something like today? I don't know.
Sure. So I won't be able to speak in certainty for a lot of these things, obviously, because I'm not Honda. I'm not, the developer. Right. I just, edit the software that's available for me. But big differences between them are obviously generational as far as hardware. Completely different ECUs. The ECUs that we used on the RSX chassis back whenever you and I first started working together. They were ECUs that were, for the most part, turn of the century hardware. And then a few years later, they transitioned to the drive-by-wire stuff, and it's a completely different generation of ECUs. But as far as like limitations, like what you're talking about with the gear ratio input and things like that, I think some of that is on Hondata's end. I mean, I don't want to point fingers at Honda, but they don't.
We're not Honda.
Right, I'm not Honda. Yeah, they don't really want to put the development time into it, I guess, or they don't see the merit of it. They probably look at something and say, we have X number of users on this product, and we're selling this many units for this, model. Let's say a 2012 to 2015 Civic Si these days, and it's just not worth our time to develop custom features or more tables than what's already been uncovered and available to the end user. So that's probably one of the big ones. Some of the stuff that we had on the RSX with K-Pro, obviously we had, boost control from an output. That was repurposed from an EVAP up, essentially, The thing is, you had touched on the EPA earlier. It's been noted by Honda actually that they won't repurpose something that's emissions based for another use anymore. So, there's only a finite number of pulse width modulated outputs from the ECU, and let's say one of them is EGR or EVAP or something like that, and they said they're not going to go through with modifying it, and it's probably because they're scared of a government agency coming down and cracking down on them, and I don't blame them.
No, they gotta stay in business, and there's nothing to gain from that. Nothing for them. There's no gain for that. Even if you got the lawyers, you gotta pay them.
In this free country,
yeah. All right, so let's see, what else do I have for you? Do you guys have any questions for Derek? I'm asking the chat. I'm going over to you, Jose, and Signal. We good? Okay.
Jose and I talk a lot. Yeah.
You guys talk all the time.
I've known Jose for longer than anyone here, I think, actually. I think Jose and I met, was it 2008, Jose?
Your mic's muted, Jose. Oh.
There we go. We go back to probably even before that, because I started out crossing in 06. So somewhere in between. You're right. Probably 2008 I got heavier, and then that's when you invited me over for testing the first Whipple.
Yes. It was wild. And we made like 400 horsepower or something, or 420 horsepower or something. And at the time, we were usually all confined to the MP62 stuff on the Comtech blowers and the Jackson blowers, and then here you are with this Lysholm 1600 or something that you
I
had.
think it was great.
And it was 400 horsepower. It was 100 horsepower head and shoulders over everything else back then.
Yeah.
From a supercharged 2-liter 4-cylinder. It was something cool, and it was something new, and it was exciting. The supercharger game was in its infancy, and it was a lot of fun to push that forward.
Still fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it still is.
I still have one. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just amazing. Like I have your kit now, and I'm like, wow, this thing. I remember we had to relocate the bypass port to the bottom of the Jackson Racing manifold, and we're working through the night. We had a drill bit, and we were just cutting holes in a circle pattern, and then going around and connecting the holes. It's insane the stuff we were doing just to make it work. Now it's like, these bolts go here, that bracket goes there. But so that kind of like segues into my next question. We're not obviously. I mean, I've had a turbo RSX.
Yes. Yep.
That was hella fun. I mean, like I remember peak I made like 580 wheel or 540 wheel horsepower and 440 torque on your dyno.
Yep.
And I drove home and I'm like, this is just insane. And
yeah, because it was a 2.4, right? It was like K24.
It was a K24.
Yeah, with a 40R on it, with like a
dump truck.
Yeah.
Dual wastegates. I mean, it sounded amazing. I still.
Yes, it was a spaghetti tube nightmare mess though. It was a twin scroll.
Yeah.
Two wastegates.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that again.
Yeah. There are way easier ways to turbocharge an RSX now. Like if you're going to turbocharge an RSX now, just buy an EFR kit, like an internal gate EFR kit, and make your life easy.
Yeah. So, but obviously we're not competing with that market. I mean, Hans is heavily trying to like hit like 500-600 horsepower, which I mean, Jose has done it before. You guys have tuned 500 horsepower supercharged cars. So, with that being said, like, are we just nuts? Do you think we're crazy sometimes? Like, just trying to put this much on this 4-banger with these massive blowers?
As far as 4-banger, no, I don't think you're nuts trying to do it with a 4-banger. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff going with 4-bangers, but front-wheel drive cars, that's really the thing. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I mean, I literally, I don't know if you guys knew this, or some of you may have seen it. I had an MR2 project. I got rid of my Civic Coupe that I had for years and years and years, and I got an MR2. And all my buddies were like, yeah, you're going to love the rear-wheel drive thing, and it's going to be so much easier and so much fun. It's not going to spin. And then I had these like dreams of dying in this thing. Like, I don't know if it was because I got spooked by watching like a video of one like snap oversteer and going to a ditch before. But I had these visions of like dying in the car. And I'm like, you know what? Any car that I can see myself dead in, I should probably not have anymore.
Yeah.
So I got rid of it, and then I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not gonna do any of this stuff. I'm just gonna buy more new platforms, because that's been my business model for the last couple of years, just supporting all the new platforms. And I bought an Accord, and then a buddy of mine was like, hey, I'm selling my RSX, which was owned by another really close friend of mine for years. And he says, you know anybody that wants it? I said, yeah, actually, I want it. And of course, now it's a built motor and a 62 millimeter turbo and all the stupid shit. And here I am with an overpowered front wheel drive car again. So
yeah.
What made you go back to the car?
What's that?
What made you go back to it?
I don't know. I don't know. It was one of those things where I didn't really have anything. I didn't have anything that was like semi-fast anymore. Mm-hmm. I had a newer Civic inside at the time. I had a new Accord at the time. I have an Integra Type R, but everything was 300 horsepower. And 300 horsepower is fun, but it's not as fun as 600 horsepower.
Right.
And it was one of those things where like I knew the car and I knew the history of it since new, and I knew it was in good shape, and the price was really good. So it was one of those things where I'm like, shit, I got to do it. I got to
enough, right?
I got to pick it up. And what's funny is I gave it a trial period. You know, the whole time, like I was changing everything about it. I'm like, you know what, this car, you know, it's on probation with me. Like, it's not a guaranteed thing. Like, I'll flip it, I'll sell it, I'll do this, and now like the idea of getting rid of the car seems so foreign to me. My friends make fun of me all the time. Like, you should sell it and buy an NSX.
Right,
You know,
right.
buy a new car. You can afford it. But this thing is like cheap and easy, and I can beat the crap out of it.
Yeah.
And it's so much fun. There's nothing like I don't want to say there's nothing like a turbocharged Honda, but there's nothing really like it. I mean, supercharged Hondas, turbocharged Hondas,
Same thing, yeah.
you know, just
Yeah.
keep pulling. The faster you go, I don't know.
Yeah.
I probably have a mental problem.
No, you know, it's funny that I wanted to hear it from you because you're repeating exactly how I feel. I don't have an RSX anymore. I ended up with an EP3 this time, but close enough. And what drives me to it is the simplicity of it.
Yes.
You know that you can carry 3 sockets and all 3 would
Yeah.
A 10 mil, a 14, and a 17 if you need it.
17 and a 19
Yeah.
maybe for the wheels.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe if you gotta take the wheels off.
Yeah.
No, it's
So
true.
and that's what, you know, I don't get rid of it. It's cheap enough car. I can make a ton of fun of power with it, and it's reliable for the most part. So, but yeah, you're not crazy, no.
Yeah.
Or I'm in good company, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So tell us how much power that thing is making.
The RSX?
Yeah.
So funny enough, I'm really, really bad at like putting my own car on the dyno, even though I'm on it like all the time, every day.
Yeah.
The last time I was on the dyno was right after I put the motor back in it and broke the boat motor, and it made 500 horsepower at 15 pounds. Now it runs around at like 24, 25, and I never put it back on the dyno. I just maxed the fuel system out and
Yeah.
keep it up until it's
Done.
on there.
Yeah. Yeah.
If
It's kind
I
of
had
like
to
if you're a
guess,
mechanic, you may not want to fix your own car.
what's that?
It's kind of like if you're a mechanic, you don't want to do your own brakes, maybe.
Precisely. Like, I'll tune my own car, but it'll be like the most half-assed tune in the world on my own car. Like, I'll load a file and it'll be like, oh yeah, this is one that's close, and I take it out and I drive it the 3 miles home and 3 miles back to work or something, and I do a pull and look at a log, and I'm like, yeah, that's close enough. That's
Yeah.
fine. It's
Still
fast.
pulls.
Yeah, right.
You're not gonna sue yourself.
No.
Exactly. So let's see what else. What else did I had something else for you here?
E-tuning. I don't know if you want to go into that now or not.
Yeah, I do. I'm trying to.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
We can talk about email tuning. That's fine.
Yeah, let's go into that. I really like that's. I don't want to tease anyone or like.
No. So email tuning is actually a huge part of our business, and I want to say that it's actually. I mean, if I look at the numbers for the last 3 years or so, email tuning is like 3 to 1 as far as my work these days. Funny enough, and I think it's just because it reaches a wider audience, you know, than just the people that can feasibly make it here to tune in person. And I never want to, you know, convey the message that it's a replacement for tuning in person, because it certainly isn't a replacement for tuning in person. But, you know, whenever you have the information in front of you, you have a data log in front of you, you're seeing all the sensor data. It's raw. You can make your adjustments based on that. You know, there's certain downfalls to it where obviously you can't like hear the car run. You can't feel how it runs or anything like that. But for most modern cars, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. So, I think it was last week, maybe 2 weeks ago. Anyone who's here, maybe they don't know Busy-Moto, but Busy-Moto touched on this topic, and he made a lot of blanket statements. But I'll just go ahead and play everyone a clip of what was said, and I just want you to comment on, you know, what you know based on your experience, right? So let's go with this one. Give me a second, folks. I got a ton of stuff open. There you go.
Oh wow, I didn't even realize he called it an epidemic.
Okay, so that's where the video actually kind of starts. You didn't see that part before?
No. So funny enough, I watched it for the first time after it was brought to my attention by a client. Actually, someone reached out and emailed me, a person that I was already actually email tuning. I'd already started the process. We were already, 2 or 3 revisions deep or whatever. And he says, there's this video that I just watched from Bisimoto, and it says that email tuning is this dangerous thing that you can't do properly, and it results in a car that runs poorly and is unsafe and this and that. So I decided to search it out one morning, Sunday morning, 2 Sunday mornings ago or something like that, and I kind of watched the video while I don't know, spacing out evidently, and I didn't even take notice of the first minute of that conversation where he called it an epidemic. And it's funny that he specifically talks about email tuning and then remote tuning, which in my book are 2 separate things. Whenever I talk about remote tuning, it's usually on a dyno typically. I mean, not too often that I remote tune without a dyno, but even then we're doing the exact same thing in that instance that I would be doing if the car were here in person. It's just I have a proxy on the other end of the line, someone running the car on the machine, being my eyes and my ears, but all the information that I'm making changes based on are still being fed to me from the computer. So
yeah, so I mean, I saw that, and obviously that's where the video sort of starts. If anyone wants to watch the full video, you could go to his channel. I thought right there he lost a lot of people by making a statement that e-tuning is a pandemic. It's almost like a scare word these days. And I have nothing. I have nothing against Busy. I don't know him. I think the first time I met him was on a Netflix show, and obviously he's doing very well for himself out in Cali, and he's been in it for a long time, and
sure. It's one of those things where I think he's kind of rested on his laurels as far as kind of set in his ways. I'll be the first one to tell you that 10 years ago or whatever, you talked about magnesium tuning. JD,
right.
Super nice guy. He's natively local to here. I thought it was one of those things where I had a view very much kind of like Busy now. I'm like, there's no way you can tune the car like that. Like it's inefficient. You need the dyno and this and that. And I was very resistant to it too. And there were some other guys, over the years in the market that I'm in that have kind of dominated it, over the years on and off. And it got to the point where it was adapt or die. Clients wanted it, clients talked about it. And I started doing a bit of it. And it was one of those things where it's like, oh, well, you know what? I can serve, 10 times the amount of clients that I do here in person with my time. If I just offer this service, and it's been a really great service. Of course, it's all off-road use only.
Right. Not sanctioned for street. So we talked about Magnesium Joseph, JD. Dude's got like 3 names. There's a couple guys on the chat here that actually they come from the Club RSX days, so then they'll know who we're talking about. There were a lot of times, I think when I first went supercharged, I went on the forum, and he street tuned my RSX the first time. I was like, because I tried to do it myself. Everyone's like, oh, it's so easy. You could just go into K-Pro and tell it what to do.
Yep.
I didn't know. I had no idea what I was doing. So, I think it was like $100. I paid him after the first pull. He sent me a calibration, and the car was totally different. It felt like it was just like, I was like, dude, we're done. He's like, no, we got to do a few more revisions, but it was just, so did you notice that you had to do, and not putting JD out there, a lot of changes to something like a car like mine that maybe showed up from a street tune from someone like JD? I don't know. Have you?
So there's a few ways to skin a cat. I find that it's not one of those cut and dry things where there's a proper way to do one thing versus another in many respects as far as tuning goes. But I try not to work with other calibrations, I should say. I've seen some of the other email tuner stuff over the years, over the last decade or whatever. And you know, I may have thought some things were unorthodox, but you know, if it works, it works.
Yeah. No, I guess it makes sense for your standpoint. You don't want to say I started off, you know, in my industry, you know, I'm in the IT world, and you know, when I used to work for the public sector, it would be something like someone would install Microsoft Windows 10 on a computer, and then we would do all the crazy software stuff, like, you know, specific, you know, higher level software. And then there were people that would like to that used to like to blame the issues on the install of Windows 10, which, you know, again, that's kind of like what it reminded me of. Like, oh no, that guy installed Windows. I just did the software. So it's like a whole lot of. So you're obviously better off starting with your own.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those things. It's the same kind of thing. You know, someone gets a cartoon somewhere else and comes in like, oh, well,
Yeah.
you know, this thing runs like crap. It does this. It does that. Blah 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 blah. You know, but I've already got this tune. Can you work with it? And the answer is usually no. You know, I start with my own, just so I know everything about the calibration at that point. You know,
Yeah.
if there's a problem, I know where to find it, or at least have a good starting point of knowing where to find it.
Yeah. So I'm gonna play another clip, and this is where it's over my head. So it's kind of why I brought you into this live stream. So
Sure.
so you could, you know, explain to, you know, bozos like me.
That's all right. No.
Let's see.
Hopefully, I can word it well.
Yeah. Let's see. So this is where we get into more technical aspects of tuning that I don't understand. But here you go.
I know where this is going with cam phasing. Oh, that's a really bold statement there. Okay, so he actually touched on a lot of points there. I was hoping it was going to stop soon because he touched on a whole lot of points.
Right.
So the first one he talked about is obviously with a K series, a cam phasing. Like, how do you know, you know, where let's say, where do you want the intake cam at? You know, at what engine speed and engine load? There's a few ways you can do it, and let me preface this a little bit with there is no better way to do that than on a dyno. I'm not going to disagree with him in that respect, that the dyno is the best way in order to find, you know, maximum torque at a given engine speed for whatever setting you've got, for ignition advance, for cam phasing, for air fuel ratio. You know, the dyno is a controlled environment, back to back to back, where you can make all these changes. But my problem really comes in where he bills it as an unsafe, procedure there. Can you make a lot of power without a dyno? Absolutely. Will you make more power if you stick it on a dyno and find out exactly what it wants? You know, let's say it wants, you know, 20 degrees cam advance up top instead of 30 degrees cam advance up top. Sure, the dyno is going to be the easiest place to find that, and it's definitely worthwhile. But if you're just looking for a car that runs well and runs to, let's say, 90% of its potential and safely, IMWTuning is a great alternative for that, especially if you don't have a dyno tuner in your area that you trust, or someone you don't have access to somebody who's familiar with your platform or anything like that. So let's revisit. Do you have that clip still?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and replay that again, and I'll have you pause after certain things.
Yeah, let me know if I'm just going on and on. Let's see.
Maybe.
All right, so I just found the spot that we needed.
Okay, we can stop right there. How do you know when you're going to the right direction when you're trying to optimize ignition timing? So ignition timing via email is a tough one. It's one of those things where you rely a lot on knock sensors, especially on a modern car. And it's one of the reasons why I won't email tune older stuff that doesn't have good knock, good knock logic or knock feedback. It's one of the things where we will just err on the side of caution and assume that the knock sensor is correct in order to keep it on the softer side of things. As far as optimizing ignition advance to make power, you can use things like the virtual dyno or a proprietary software that measures acceleration over time. But you have to kind of control those variables too. Like even virtual dyno, it's real popular in the Evo world and some other applications. Whenever you have somebody that wants you to use that, make sure that they're asking you to perform the wide open throttle runs at the same location, at the same spot, going in the same direction in order to try and control some of those variables. And I know if Busy ever finds this, he's going to rip me apart for this, but it's what you can do. And I'm not saying the process is perfect, because the process isn't perfect, but it's good enough for the vast majority of enthusiasts that are interested in having their car tuned at that level. Okay, so we can go back to the videos.
Let's go back to the clip.
Okay.
Let's hit it.
Yeah, he goes on about making the most power at knock. So that's not a huge concern. Obviously, if you are knocking on fuel like pump gas, you should probably yank some ignition advance to avoid the knock condition. I mean, it's not rocket science. But at that point, again, it's about keeping it safe and keeping it reasonable, not looking for every 1 or 2 horsepower that may unlock an extra half degree of ignition advance.
Right. It's not worth it at that point.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, like I remember my latest dyno session. I got tuned at Jeff's shop.
Yep.
The car was making more power even when it started to knock, but there's no point in going there.
No.
So he's like, look, we're just gonna back this up a little bit.
Yes.
I mean, Jose's seen my logs. He's like, man, this can we like push it a little further, Jose? Right? You wanted more ignition. You're like, come on.
That sounds like Jose. That sounds like Jose. Yeah.
And I'm like,
we go a little further. Can we give it another pound of boost? More ignition timing.
So, but and again, that's. I mean, I understand knock is bad. Period.
Yeah.
So that's the extent of my.
Yeah, and I think so. Back in the video, I think the next thing touches on is optimal air fuel ratio. He uses an example of like a boosted 911 that likes 11.3 and boosted LS likes 11.8 or whatever. Again, it's one of those things where difference in air fuel may be substantial enough to be a power difference, but why chance it, especially on a car that presumably is somebody's daily driver or something? Err on the side of caution. Leave it half a point richer than what it could possibly be better at.
So let's see. I don't know how much. Just replying to one of the guys here, trying to not to leave the guys in the comment section in the dark.
I'm not even paying attention to YouTube. Is there people actually there?
Yeah. There's like 40 people on, and
okay.
One guy said if it was that critical, I don't know, then cars would be dyno tuned from the factory. I don't know if that makes sense.
Sure, absolutely.
It's a good point.
Right. And, the OEMs leave a big margin of safety because they don't know what the fuck you're going to be doing. I've met a lot of people that are really abusive to their vehicles. And I laugh. And I had this one customer, I said, if you really want to, test something, give it to this guy. If you want a durability test, give it to this fucking guy and he'll fucking find it. And, with those guys, you leave it soft because you know what they're going to do with it. And you don't know, what level of mechanical sympathy they have.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, like, I don't know. And there's variables like, you could be the nicest guy to your car, but who
You get a
knows?
shit tank of gas, you know?
You get a shit tank of gas, you go to an oil change place, they don't take care of it. If you don't do your own maintenance, I mean, there's just too many variables. I think once you told me back in the day, you mentioned a customer, you built a car for him or you tuned a car for him, and then you looked in the oil tank and the guy had like a quarter, like a quart of oil in there. It's just like,
Yeah.
how do you drive around with a car like that? It's just
I had a guy show up not too long ago. It was a real nice kid. It was a newer car. It was a 10th gen Civic Si. Had a big turbo kit on it, and he put the turbo kit on himself, and must have like checked his oil or something the night before. He drove here from like an hour away, and he must have got like part of the way here and noticed that there was smoke coming out from under his hood. So he goes to a gas station and pops his hood and realizes that he left his oil cap off, and it had
shit.
spewed out collectively like a quart and a half in the half an hour that he drove here.
Dang.
Wow. That's scary. That reminds me of, like, again, the supercharger days when we used to supercharge a car in a shed somewhere and then like try to drive to your shop. And I was bringing it up with Jose because it's funny. Like, we do it, but the amount of risk we're actually taking with the stuff. I mean, like, we can't afford a truck, a trailer, and all this stuff to, like, okay, let's bring this what's supposed to be a cheap car to a shop in basically a limousine for someone to tune it for you.
Right. Absolutely.
It's nonsense. But do you want to see the rest of the clip, or let's see this? There's about another minute or so of talking there.
Well, yeah, I may as well listen to.
Might as well.
Yeah, may as well.
Let's go for it. Yeah, we talked about this already.
Yeah, knock, air fuel ratios. Yep. So, he's going on about this, and he says how it's, improper and this and that, and how it's dangerous and how it's guessing. Well, it's not really guessing, it's making choices based on the data that you've got, and then, taking what you see and working with it. And I don't know. I mean, like I said, I tune a whole bunch of these cars via email,
right,
remotely, and cars that I've never seen ever, and they all seem to work pretty well. The only downfalls of it are whenever you have somebody's car that is feeding you wrong information, in which case you can kind of weed that out once you've done this enough. Like one of the real common mistakes people make with 8th gen Civic SIs, something I see all the fucking time, via email, in person, no matter what. There'll be supercharged cars, there'll be naturally aspirated cars, but they'll have like a Skunk 2 Alpha header on, right? Which is like the most popular aftermarket header for an 8th gen Civic Si because it's fairly inexpensive and it works pretty well. It makes decent power. They ship with a non-fouler for the secondary O2, so that you can trick the ECU into thinking that there's cat there.
Right.
And for a long time, they didn't include an O2 extension harness. So the primary O2 sensor location is on, one of the banks of secondaries on it, one of the 4:2:1 sections on it, and it's a tight fit with the factory wiring. It almost doesn't fit at all with the factory wiring, which is why you need an O2 extension harness. And people all the time will take that non-fouler and they'll stick it in the front bung for it, and then they'll put the primary O2 sensor in that non-fouler. So I'll get a data log from them, and I'll see a data log, and I'll see the lambda signal just kind of traipse up and down, positive and negative around the target whenever there's a low flow condition. And I'll say, hey, did you by chance install your primary in this non-fouler? Get underneath the car and take a picture of it for me. And sure enough, that's what it will find. Wow. And I'm like, yeah, you have to fix that before we, continue tuning. Or I'll get a car that, I'll have them do a wide open throttle pull, one of the earlier revisions or whatever. And, it'll show a lean signal or a ridge signal, and I'll make a 5% change or a 10% change, and it won't reflect it. Well, obviously, if the logged fueling from the O2 sensor doesn't show that there's an increase or decrease in fuel on it, the sensor signal's faulty, and you can spot stuff like that. Tricky things to diagnose remotely are knock sensitivity. That's a tough one. You'll get a car that'll come through and again, like do a ton of 8th and 9th gen stuff, especially they're getting older now, and people will use replacement or like K-tuned junk on it, and it'll show 500 counts of knock on cylinder 2 at idle or something, over a 5-minute span. And you're like, that's not right. Like either you have a really, really, really big problem, something is making a whole lot of noise in that bore, or your sensor's fucked. You have to replace it. But again, it's one of those things where you can spot some of the problem areas, especially if it's a platform, a simple platform, or one that has a lot of electronic nannies built into it, like 10th gen Civic SIs. 10th gen Civic SIs have really great knock sensors and really great knock logic, to the point where you can pretty much trust it unless it's a built motor, or somebody's got an exhaust that's rattling against the engine or something.
Got it. And talking about knock sensors, I found that we used to tune the RSX all the time, and knock was almost never an issue with that motor.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know if it just was a very low sensitivity knock sensor.
It's basic. So like if you look at the factory ECU stuff, if you look at K-Pro, one of the most popular OEM ECU combinations for K series, 0204 K series stuff. It's super basic as far as what defines knock on it. It's voltage versus a threshold, and then if voltage goes over a threshold for X number of frames during testing, then it counts as a knock count. Whereas, all the newer stuff is a little more advanced than that. They actually do distance from the knock sensor to determine what cylinder may have knock activity, where the knock ceiling is. It's a little more robust now.
Yeah, it almost has shown me like, man, like we can't push that far with this thing. Like slow it down. Again, back to
a lot of people like to get overzealous too. Like a lot of people have unrealistic expectations about pump gas all the time too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's one of those things where everyone wants to make as much power as they can on the worst fucking fuel possible, the most inconsistent fuel possible. And I have to break a lot of people's hearts whenever I tell them that I won't tune something to a certain power level because it's knock limited before we even get close to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, see, the only one who's like blessed over here, maybe you are, and Signal too, man. E85. I even asked there's a gas station nearby me that sells race fuel, and that's where I went to buy my race fuel for my track day. I'm like, you guys know anything about E85 coming here? They're like, forget about it.
Really?
Connecticut will just not even touch it, not even close to it.
Really? Yeah. So
although there's a town where the Mercedes dealership, the Lamborghini, like any of those high-end cars, there's a town here called Greenwich.
Mm-hmm.
You know who lives there. There's there's a Ferrari dealership like down the street. They have one E85 pump station.
Wow. Okay. So
you have 30 minutes away from me. I have to go out of my way.
Yeah.
One. There's another one near the casinos. Again, it's like an hour and a half. I'm like, this is just not. It's not ideal for me.
Right.
It just isn't.
Yeah.
We're blessed in Pennsylvania where I want to say I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard a rumor that there was a grant that the state was giving like fueling stations if they offered alternative fuel solutions. So ethanol was considered an alternative fuel for a set amount of time, and like all of the sheet stations in the area ended up getting E85 pumps. So like in the vicinity of my shop, there is 1, 2, 3, 4. Probably 5 sheet stations within a 10 or 15 mile radius of here that have E85. So it's like everywhere.
Yeah, you could walk to the sheets across the street and get whatever.
Yeah. Luckily ours was, we got it in 2010 across the street. The sheets was built in 2009, I think. And I'm like, oh, they got, different colored handles on them. Maybe we're going to get E85. And then there wasn't. And then a year later, I saw him working on the pumps, and I walked inside one day and buying a Mountain Dew or something. I'm like, hey, what are they doing with these pumps over here? And the lady behind the counter is like, "Oh, we're doing that flex fuel, that E85 thing," and I'm like, oh, "That's perfect. That's perfect."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that's the best thing that's happened to me. Like I say, within the last 10 years, Northern Virginia probably had maybe one. And when I did the map, I have this app that says Alt Fuel. I have like 20 stations in the Northern Virginia area. They just made a new one that's I think 10 miles north of me, where I used to live. They just popped up a new station, so that area has 4 now. So they're really building it out here. I don't know what happened. Maybe they did the same thing what PA did. Hey, alternate
Maybe there's a
fuels.
branch. Yeah.
Yeah. So all the sheets have it now. Well, now all the new sheets, and we have Royal Farms. So there's 2 companies.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I say I hear that there's some other stations in the area that have it too, but everyone I've ever seen has been sheets, and it's just
Sheets, yeah.
because they're everywhere in central Pennsylvania, so it's just convenient.
Not that much luck for me.
No 85 your way.
We had one is gone and everything else is north of me. Like, what is it? 45 minutes our hands?
Yeah,
He's gotta
45
drive
minutes is the closest.
Yeah.
Rough.
It's weird because North Carolina on the way to Jose's, there's a bunch, but the minute you
Oh,
hit
yeah.
Charlotte, it's empty.
Done.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's insane.
What was that, Derek? You were trying to say something?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember. Oh, VP Fuel Stealer. Do you have a VP Fuel Stealer anywhere close?
Oh, that's what it was. It was a BP fuel station, and they were good for a few years, and then suddenly, no more gas, no more E85.
Because if you have a VP Fuels dealer close to you, you can buy 55-gallon drums of X85, and keep it around. You can get they have a pump, a manual hand pump that you can get for like $30 or something, and makes life easy. As long as you're okay with having a 55-gallon drum of fuel somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I keep welding gas tanks and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Just put it in the same corner. Everything in the same corner.
Yeah.
Like gas.
Inherent risk,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I thought about that. They did like the gas station here. They have like 98, 102, 100, 104, whatever. And they said if you want bigger drums, go ahead and we could set you up. But it's still very expensive to go 104. I didn't look at X85. I think I paid something like, I don't know, $15 per gallon.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's expensive.
For 104.
Meanwhile, I say, Hans, how much is pump E85 in your area right now?
Right now is $2. 2 months ago it was $1.80.
Yeah.
And it's always $1 less than 93.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That's usually what the spread is. Usually 80 to 90 cents or something like that.
Yeah.
Spread between 93 and 85 here.
So the MPGs, they're really about the same when you think about it.
It's the same. The amount
you
of
get less,
money
but you're
you
paying
use,
a lot less.
It's the same. It's the same.
Yeah. But it's way more fun.
A lot. And it smells good. I love the smell now.
It does. If you smell gasoline, pouring gasoline, it just not for me.
You could tell white corn is better.
Yeah. Ethanol's a good fuel. A good fuel.
All right, guys. So I think that covered basically all the questions I had about busy, about e-tuning. I'm trying to see if here's one. Something I've been considering, right? So, Jeff from Evans Performance Academy, he actually, he teaches people how to tune online.
Yep.
It's something that I've been considering because I remember I was trying to get his attention before my race day. And I know he's busy, and I'm like, hey man. So last minute we were able to make some modifications, but I'm like, I really need to learn how to tune. So learning how to tune, like, is this something that you would recommend to someone like a regular Joe Schmo like myself? Would you recommend going to like his classes or whatever?
Yeah, so I haven't actually looked at any of Jeff's instructional videos outside of like the little blurbs that are posted on social media or anything like that. But they look like good information. They look like real good information. And as far as can the average person, the average enthusiast do it? Yeah. Human brain's capable of learning constantly.
That's right.
I don't see why not. We still teach old dogs new tricks. It's not impossible. It's never too late to learn something new.
Right.
The resident old dog is barking.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think having an understanding of how things work as far as your engine goes and what's going on is a really great idea. Even if you don't feel comfortable tuning your own car completely, just being able to read a data log and understand what you're looking at is really valuable.
Right.
Right, that's the thing with it is people should know the minimum. At least you get into high performance vehicles. You should understand at a minimum what an O2 sensor is, what an AFR is, what ignition is, what is a knock.
Yes.
Even if you don't tune your own car, you learn these things. It makes you more knowledgeable in conversing or communicating with your tuner when you do have problems.
Absolutely. If I have a customer that comes to me and says, hey, I data logged a race this weekend, or data logged the spirited drive that I took, and I see that I'm hitting lean protection, or I have some knock activity whenever I tip into the throttle in third gear, gear or whatever. Can you take a look at the log for me and help me out? That helps out a ton. Letting me know what exactly the problem is that I'm looking for, we can correct it a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
Right. No, that makes sense.
Then small things would be, for example, you understand the basics. Okay, my car is knocking a lot when this happens. Well, okay, let me just remove ignition from this specific spot until my tuner can take a look at it.
Right.
At least you're safe until he has time to get to you.
Sure. No, that's definitely valuable. Definitely a valuable thing to do.
And I remember having a car that wasn't running all that great, and I think I that was when I first got boosted, and I think everyone's basically said, look, as long as you stay at a boost and you stay, in vacuum, you shouldn't really destroy your car. And that was sort of like, I need to get this car to my tuner. It's a 4-hour drive. Can I actually do it? And I don't know. I wouldn't do it. I would just say, hey, let me get an e-tune, do a few passes.
So, case in point, another way that email tuning or anything that's sort of remote tuning can help a dyno tuner is helping to get the car here safely. In the market I'm in, obviously I'm dealing with Hondas and Acuras. Hondas and Acuras aren't expensive cars, and the demographic that seems to own them obviously are younger people. People that didn't spring for Mercedes or a BMW or an Evo or an STI or something like that. And they may not have access to a trailer or a truck or a buddy with a trailer or a U-Haul or anything to bring the car here to get it tuned. Well, I can send you a base calibration. And then if the car doesn't run well, on that base calibration, you can record some data logs for me. You send them back. And we go back and forth a little bit, same kind of thing as the email tuning process, just to get us running and get you here safely. To call that dangerous is just irresponsible.
Another word he used with the e-tuning was taking advantage of people, or e-tuners. Most of them are taking advantage of people. And that was also another blanket statement that was like, oh my man, like that's I never thought that you were taking advantage of anyone, or back in the day, magnesium, like you'd email him, email you back, PayPal, bang, bang, bam, your car was running.
Yes. No one is holding a gun to someone's head and say, hey, you need to give me money to send you this file over an email. These are all conscious decisions everyone is making.
Right.
They're wanting to do that.
Yeah. And this is not saying that there aren't bad e-tuners out there. Recently I saw a post on 9th Gen forum. I don't know what, there was one guy who said he got e-tuned, and he had an NA 9th Gen, maybe some bolt-ons and stuff, but he said that his tuner left his AFR at 12.5. And I thought that was a bit high, but
it depends what the setup was. Was it a turbocharged car or something? Or
no, NA
bolt-on car?
Yeah.
12.5 is a pretty common air fuel ratio for that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there's some people that would consider that rich for naturally aspirated car. I like to target mid-12s usually, just because I don't see a market difference between mid-12s and like 13.0s or something that some other guys like to run. I just like to again err on the side of caution and longevity and give it a little bit of extra
Got it.
cooling, combustion cooling with some fuel. But
That's
a pretty normal, naturally aspirated target air fuel ratio. OEMs will go richer, especially with older cars. They'll go richer, but it's something that.
See, there I learned something. That makes sense because look, I only ever got tuned after getting boosted, and I've been tuning boosted cars
So you've
from
always
day
think,
one.
oh, I want the mid 11s or whatever. Yeah,
Give me 11.
Yeah, but no, naturally aspirated cars. That's pretty common for those.
There you go. See, I'm gonna correct myself right there. See, that's why you bring people to the show to so you can learn something, guys. Derek, Jose, Signal, I'll give you guys the floor. I don't have any more questions. Derek, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh,
Who's
Jose.
that?
Jose.
I'm gonna mute him.
Yeah, Jose, your mic is really messed up now.
Yeah.
I think Jose has left the building.
Yeah, he's like, look like you sound terrible. I'm gonna keep muting him.
Is that
Yeah.
WAP? WAP? Is that what that was?
Wop, wop,
I don't know
wop,
what's
wop.
going on. But I wanted to add some to what you were saying, Derek, with the e-tuning. Like with me, we met. I first got an e-tune from you. Car ran great.
Yep.
Girlfriend talked trash, said it was slow, blah, blah, blah. So I went boosted. And every time I've been down to your shop many times. I'm like, hey, it's the last time I'm here. I go back home, I change a part, go to Jose's, make more boost, and then I always hit you up, hey, I need a safe tune. Because I'm driving from Jose down near Charlotte all the way to PA.
Yep.
And I've never had an issue with the car with any configurations you sent me. So yeah, I just wanted to add on to what you had to say. Everything.
Yeah, and yours is a fairly complex setup too. But I don't want to say super complex setup. It's still stock ECU, stock motor car, but it's got a lot going on. It's got a TVS 1900. It's got a big blower on it. It's got big injectors. It's got a fuel system. It's got flex fuel compensation on it. It's got a lot going on, and we're able to get you going remotely just based on a few short data logs, enough for you to get here and iron out the rest in person. And I think I actually keep offering to email tune your car, and you're like, nah, I just want to come back up. I just want to,
because I need some numbers.
Yeah. Like I want to see the dyno numbers again. Because
Yeah.
I think the last round of the changes that you made, I'm like, yeah, dude, I can just do that, real quick and do it via email, touch it up, no problem. Like you don't need to come back. I'll save you some cash, save you some time.
Yeah.
I just think you like to come hang out, which is fine. That's okay.
Yeah, I just like to see numbers.
Yeah.
And also, we were curious because we talked about this after my last tune. So, not this one, the previous one, I was making 418. Had the bigger throttle body, but this time we changed the pulley setup. Same PSI, went back to a stock throttle body, but I was making more power.
Yep.
Why? What happened? I guess we were trying to discuss, like, hey, what happened?
Yeah. So you went from like a ZDX throttle body or J37 throttle body or something, the stock throttle.
Mhm.
You said it was a pulley combination change, right?
Yeah, so we went with 8th gen pulley crank,
Right.
and then we went to from a 3.5 to a 3.0 supercharger pulley.
Right.
End result PSI was the same,
Right.
but we made more power.
Made more power, yeah. And I think ignition advance was pretty close to the same too, wasn't it? I think
you said you.
I made a comment to it that we ended up at the same spot. I mean, I started off soft every time you get here, and then we work our way back up to it.
Yeah.
The big reason why I recommended putting the smaller throttle body on was obviously for drivability concerns. The 9th gen ECU just doesn't like to drive larger throttles correctly.
Mhm.
And it's one of those things where some people are more sensitive to it than others, and you just happen to be sensitive enough to it that it drove you insane.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. But
And bigger injectors don't help either.
Yeah, big injectors don't have big injectors and a giant throttle body on a supercharged car with a feather response. Makes for a touchy driving experience pretty much overall.
Yeah.
Right.
Just had a lot of things going on that made it touchier and jerkier and herkier and jerkier.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. I found out use J37, and there's some people out there that say that you can just replace the motor, not the gears. So basically swap the 9th gen or the motor that basically pulls less power. It pulls like 5 amps versus 10.
It might be
And so
worth a shot.
you're doing some Frankenstein stuff in there, and people are saying that that's kind of like the solution for it. It makes sense a little bit,
Sure, but
then you're wondering whether you're going to burn out the motor rather than
thing, the larger throttle plate itself, has more mass to try and turn. But I'd say try it.
Yeah.
If people are having
Dude,
success with it, give it a shot. It's
it
worth
was
it.
like $50 on like the junkyard. I'm like, I'll give this a shot. But again, it's one of those things that maybe it's not worth it doing, but you can only try it. I remember we still have that mentality of like, no one can tell us no, you can't do this, even if it's Honda.
Right.
So
Hans, touching back on your last dyno session,
Yeah.
I don't have the logs in front of me right now, but I feel like IATs were better this time. Maybe.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's right. We
Oh,
did
yeah.
go with a bigger pump. That's right.
Yeah. Yep. So
that's-
IAT's a pretty big one. Charge cooling is a pretty important factor that a lot of people overlook, especially supercharged world people overlook, and it really is huge.
Okay.
Yeah, one change that I made on his car that I never had a chance to test. I sound okay now, guys?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
I'm just using a microphone on the Mac. So the crank pulley setup, he now has a smaller crank pulley ratio, where I always felt, at least Bud Dyno told me that when I did that on my race car, it always felt more lively.
Oh yeah. Like what was the old combination on
It was
had a
ninth gen.
R40.
Yeah, the 9th gen crank pulley with a 3.5 supercharger pulley. Now we went with the 8th gen, which is pretty small.
Yep.
And a 3.0 supercharger
So
pulley.
it's easier to drive the blower because that lever is leverage.
Yeah.
So, but I never had a way of testing or seeing if that made a difference. So
trying to quantify something like that's kind of difficult.
Without the changes we made. So, but I'm just curious if that actually helped as well, because I do feel it, but I never quantify it with a dyno. So
yeah, maybe it's a good possibility. Hans says the car runs well though, so I mean that's I
love it. It I still want more power, because I do plan on rebuilding the motor.
No way.
Oh wait, you guys wanted to touch on another subject about advice on trying to make a lot of power or whatever. Big blower cars and stuff like that. I think that was one of the topics that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
So I tuned a handful of bigger power blower K-series cars over the last decade or whatever. And one in particular made 600 plus horsepower with a 2300 cc. I don't know if it was just a
Whipple?
TVS 2300 or no, it wasn't a Whipple. It was
which
might have been a Harrup. No, I don't know. It might have just been a TVS 2300, but it was a big blower on a K24, and literally it made 30 pounds of boost on this thing.
Oh, man, this is so important.
Yeah, I mean, huge.
You froze for a second. Go back to what you said, like 10 seconds.
Okay, which part?
It was a bit. Start at the 2300 part.
So 23. It was a 2300 cc blower on a K24, and like I said, I don't remember what exact 2300 cc blower was. I think it was a TVS 2300.
It was Harrup, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I kind of remember exactly which one it was.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a guy named Tim from the Midwest. Has this really cool Accord. Has a lot of cool custom parts on it. It was using. You guys ever see the excessive manifold, the intake manifold for K series? They use like big straight runners, and it's this big plenum. But he was using that runner set with a custom packer cooler core sandwiched between it, and then the blower like bolted to it with this like custom plate setup that it had. And the thing was gnarly, but it made 30 pounds of boost on this thing. And it was like an 11.5 to 1 motor or something, and ethanol fuel. It had IPS KSCs in it. Like I said, it made like 620 or 630 or something. And the thing was just absolutely insane. And I know one of the big problems that he had with it was keeping gear sets in the car. Like he would shatter like third and fourth gear, like PPG gears on this thing. Yeah. Like he would break everything, literally everything on the thing.
So much torque. Yeah.
So that was one of the big problems, and I remember specifically being leery going into it because we talk about built motor strength. I think it was a simple simple setup. It might have been like a 4-piston motor, but it was like Manly turbo tufts and
Was it sleeved?
CPs. Yeah, it was sleeve block. It wasn't O-ringed at the time, but I remember saying to him, like, I wonder how strong these rods really are, because most of the time they say, oh, let's say it does 200 or 300 horsepower per rod or something is what, a manufacturer rates them at. Well, if we talk about a 4-cylinder that's making 800 horsepower or whatever, 800, 900 horsepower or whatever, it's usually a turbo car and it's usually making that torque at a higher engine speed.
Right.
Usually nicer to rods, things like that. I said, we're making like 400 pound-feet of torque at, I want to say it was like 2,800 RPM or 3,000 RPM.
Wow.
Just, like Viper shit. And I'm like, I don't know if I trust these things. Like, I don't know if I trust all of this. And we left it like soft down low there. And it was really one of those things where I tried to bleed off boost pressure. He had a dual port actuator on it. And then I just ended up neutering it with fucking ignition retard mostly. And,
Yeah.
It seemed to work out okay. It still ended up lifting the head once or twice or something like that. And he finally O-ringed the cylinder head, and that seemed to help it out a whole bunch. And then we softened it up a little bit in the middle around peak torque, and that seemed to help it out a bunch. But those are really the big ones. Keeping a drivetrain in it, trying to limit low end torque where you don't lift the cylinder head off the thing.
Right.
In particular, one difficulty you guys with the 9th gens will run into is just overall like cylinder head flow.
That sucks. The head sucks.
The head sucks. The head is fucking
sucks.
Terrible. And I hear from 9th gen guys all the time. They're like, "Oh, well, my car still makes 600 horsepower or whatever." Well, that 600 horsepower 9th gen, turbo car or whatever, at 25 pounds of boost would be like 750 horsepower with split port head and an exhaust manifold with runner length and less exhaust back pressure. That cylinder head was really designed just for packaging and for lighting off a catalyst and minimizing emissions on start. Really, that's really all it's designed for.
Yeah.
And it's trickled down into all of the modern stuff, which obviously now they do the same thing, but they bolt a turbo onto the other side of the thing. And those guys make a lot of power with the newer engines with the single exhaust port heads, but oh man, they're just.
It's not the same.
It's not the same. The golden era of those engines is long gone.
Yeah. I'm actually going to get a K20 A2 head from a guy in Queens. He's a customer of Jose's. He runs a shop, I think Backyard Performance. Because I'm already in the process of building my motor, and just the shit that I went through because of that head. I mean, like I had to call Ferrea to order me to manufacture valves for my head because they don't mass produce them because people are not generally building this head anymore.
Right.
They're just not that interested.
Right.
So I somehow ended up with the wrong valves, and I'm just like, and I took it apart and I look at them like the exhaust cam, it's shit.
It is. It's terrible, horrible. It is absolutely deplorable. And you say you're putting a PRB head on it. It's going to make it a million times better.
I'm not putting the PRB head yet.
Oh, I thought you were putting a PRB head on it.
I've already spent a lot of money, obviously.
Okay. So you're still going to do a single port head on it.
I'm going this route now, but I do see myself just building a second proper motor with a PRB head, sleeved and stuff. Like I'm hoping to do something like that sometime next year. And I've had a good time like taking this thing apart, like just take that shit, put it over there. But I could see the issues with the head right off the bat. Even ARP, if you want head studs, ARP, you have to like measure your head studs and tell them what the measurements are.
Yeah,
I ended up saying screw it. I went to Inline Pro.
I think there's a shop stock part number that works for those though. Now there's like the GSR head studs or something of the right size and length or something.
Yeah.
I think it was BATC maybe. It's been a while since I put one together, but yeah.
Inline Pro ended up making some, but they jack up the price too because they're like, you can't buy any other.
Right, because there's not a million of them out there.
I get it, but again, like the head has been a problem.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna go with the K20 with this build. So
Good man. Good man.
I would do it. Only I already have like 70. I had 70% of stuff that I needed. I'm like this 30% of the stuff is it's a pain in the ass, but it's just I'm already almost there. Anyway.
Are you doing a sleeve block or anything, or just
No, mainly rods, not the turbo tough, just the H beams.
Hey, Barry, your cam.
Oh, yep, camera. Mainly rods, H beam. There's a guy from Club RSX back in the day. He said, look, go with Traum pistons. You ever heard of Traum pistons?
Funny enough, yeah. My current built motor in my RSX has Troms in it. Funny enough.
Yeah, so
I've got a really good customer with an 8th gen Civic that has Troms in it too. He makes 800 horsepower.
Yeah, so I got those. They come with really fat wrist pins. Which,
yeah, and they're a lot of meat on the piston. Period. Like they're full skirted. They're they're big piston, and they're probably pretty fucking heavy as a result. But
they're not this thing.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's everything else. Ferrea valve train, complete Ferrea valve train. That's it. I mean, I say that's it. It's a lot of shit, but basically a PRB oil pump, type S oil pump.
Yeah, good call. Yep.
That the stock oil pump in this car, it's the weight of a freaking blower.
It is.
Like an M62 weighs the same as the oil pump.
It fucking looks like one too.
Yeah.
Just like so.
Looks like one, feels like one. So you got to time it up with the engine, otherwise it rattles the fuck apart.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's fun. It's been fun. Jose's coming up to help me finish the whole deal.
Oh, okay, good.
I need help.
Good. It's all right.
Can't do myself.
Let's start somewhere.
No. All right, guys. That's all I got for you. You could keep it going, or we could call it a night. What do you feel like?
I mean, I touched on most of the stuff I wanted to talk about. Is there anything else you guys want to ask while I'm here?
You got them. Let me see if anybody. Let me see if anybody asked anything.
I say, have we lost all of our audience yet?
Yeah, there was a comment there earlier, Derek. They were asking you remind people how much power you lose when with a dry transmission.
With a dry transmission. Oh yeah. So I've had that happen a handful of times actually, where people have come up and they didn't realize they had an axle leak, or one guy in particular he had just had the transmission swapped on an RSX or something, and I put it on the dyno, and it was a naturally aspirated car at the time, I think, and it was doing really well, and we were starting to do pulls, and it was making like 200 horsepower, 215 or something like that. And then I got 2 more pulls in, and it started losing power. And I did another run, and I started hearing, gear 1 transmission noises, and I lost more power. I'm like, by the time we saw it, it was like 30 horsepower down. I'm like, okay, there's a huge problem going on. Like either this engine is getting ready to lock up, like a spun bearing, with a bunch of extra friction in the engine, or something drivetrain related is going on. So, looking at the logs, and there's no oil pressure gauge in the car, or oil pressure sensor in the car that's worth shit. And I look at VTC and make sure VTC is still advancing, and it is, which is good. It's usually a good sign that you have oil pressure if the variable cam can still advance. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on in this thing? And sure enough, I'm like, what? I'm just going to check the transmission, because the trans is starting to make some noises, and it really shouldn't be making these noises at this power level. And I pulled the fill plug, and nothing came out. So I'm like, okay. And I dipped my finger in there, and there was nothing. I'm like, let me pull the drain plug. I pull the drain plug, and nothing comes out.
Oh my God, dude. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So sure enough, I scramble. I grab some like synchro mesh from the auto parts store and have it delivered. And, I fill it up, fill it with 1.8 quarts or 1.6 quarts or whatever it was at the time. And it picks up all the power that it lost, and the transmission quiets right up. And I'm like, you just dodged a huge fucking bullet.
Yeah. Wow. Surprised I didn't see some bearing or something in there.
Yeah. And that's the thing, needle bearings. Starving everything. It was starving all the bearings. It was starving the gears, the needle bearings. Everything else was just heating up and making a bunch of extra friction. That and funny dyno stories. Another time I had a guy show up. We had a kid show up. This is probably 2008 or 2009. So real early on when we got our dyno pack. And it was a Type R swap, B18C engine. and it just didn't make any power at all. It made like 140 horsepower, 130 horsepower or something. And we're like, what the hell is wrong with this thing? Like VTEC works, like it didn't smoke its ass off, and check the oil in it. And it had like 9 or 10 quarts in it. Whenever the crankcase is supposed to, like the fill level is supposed to be 4 quarts. So it had that much extra oil in it that the crank had so much windage loss just pumping through oil that it cost it 30 horsepower, 40 horsepower, something crazy like that. So don't underfill your shit and don't overfill your shit. Go by the manufacturer recommendations on that.
Wow. That's shocking. He must have just like, oh yeah, I did drain the oil. Let me just add the other 4 quarts.
Like there's old ladies that are like, they'll keep dumping oil until it comes out of the fill cap, Yeah.
I had a friend, maybe around the same time, and her best friend, she's like, hey, I'm stuck inside the highway. What's going on? And we go help her out. Turns out the car had something like 50 or 60,000 miles. It was a Saturn, but that doesn't mean anything. She never changed oil.
Oh yeah.
For 60,000 miles. I'm like, you never did anything to this oil.
That's like those videos you see from like Europe and shit where people don't change the oil and they pull the oil pan down and it's just like this gelatin.
Yeah.
It just holds the shape,
Yeah. That's like, wow. I mean, but some stuff seems, like I said, maybe I should start a YouTube channel about basic oil. Like, how often should you do your oil change?
Isn't that what Scotty Kilmer exists for? Or,
oh yeah, I love that guy.
Or whatever,
Rev up your engines.
Yeah. I'll never buy a Honda again. And I'll tell you why.
Yeah. Oh man. What do you think? Quick question. What do you think of the new Supra?
The new Supra?
I saw it on the track.
Like Supra, yeah. Like obviously, it's not a car that I modify or tune or anything like that. But we've had a few of them here. John, my colleague here, he tunes them with ECU Tech, and they are really cool platforms. It gets a lot of shit for being a German car, which it is. It's a fucking BMW in Toyota clothing, but it is a nice car. It is really, really cool to see the platform, and it's easy to make power on. And for as much hate as it got on the internet, I really like the car a lot. If I were in the position to buy a toy of that caliber, I would totally rock one. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, I saw it on the track, and you see a car in pictures, and you're like, I'm not sure about this, but I saw it in person. I was like, this car is pretty awesome. Like, it just sitting there, I was like, this car. And then Lime Rock, you could walk the whole place. It's like a state park. And we walk to this point where like the track sort of like there's a dip and then there's a climb of, I don't know, maybe 1,000 feet or something like that. I'm obviously exaggerating, but you just saw the way the suspension handled the whole thing. I was like, that car's stock, and it's just like the suspension is just dealing with it. It sounds great, and I don't know. You guys heard me talk about it. I'm kind of obsessed with it, and I'm hoping that all the hate that the car's getting.
Well, I mean, all right,
drives the prices down.
You're in essentially, a $25,000 retail car back when it was new versus a $50,000 car. I mean, obviously, I would hope that something that costs double handles better, accelerates better,
right?
All of those things. I would hope.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was just comparing to like Porsches that were there, modified Porsches. Yeah.
Well, in that case,
not
it's
to mine.
Bargain too,
It's like, wow, this thing is sick. Yeah. Well, yeah, let's see. Just a joke. I live down the road from IMW, and the dude there do good work. Jim Grimm.
Jim. Yeah. So I know Jim. I've known Jim for a long time. Nice kid.
Yeah.
You're a great kid.
Yeah. Good dude. All right. That's it. That's all I got for you, man. Thank you for taking the time. It's been great.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me talk a little bit, and hopefully I didn't sound too stupid. I'm gonna get ripped apart on the internet. I already know that, especially by my peers. That they like to harass me pretty good. But no, thank you for having me. So it's good to see you guys. Barry, it's been good to talk to you. Hans, as always, my man. Thank you for your continued support, and I still can't believe you haven't broken your shit yet. You're one of those guys that I'm going to tell stories about durability testing on.
Yeah, car's been running great, man. I love it. I kind of want to push this motor more, but I need to start the rebuild of another motor first.
Yeah, it's probably good. And I think the last 2 or 3 times I've told you to make plans for that.
Yeah.
with how hard you're pushing it.
But I think when you told me the fuel pump was starting to lose its steam,
Yeah.
I think that's gonna probably restrict me from even trying to do anything more.
That's
So
the thing. Yeah, exactly. You know, if you're out of fuel system, you're out of fuel system.
yeah.
And only a fool pushes past the edge of the fuel system. So don't be a
Yeah,
fool.
last point on that. Really easy to take the engine and transmission out of this car. Surprisingly easy.
Oh yeah. And I tell you what, they get easier the newer they get too. Like the 10th gen stuff falls right the fuck up. Super
I was like, wow, this like I think maybe it took me like 2 hours. And the first time I ever did, I'm like 2 hours. Wow, that's pretty sick. So
yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad at all.
So keep it handy. Bring it to Jose.
Nice talking to you, man. Nice seeing you too, man.
All right, man.
I'll see you soon, Derek, probably.
Sounds good, Hans.
Yeah.
All right, man. Take it
All right,
easy,
guys.
Good
All
night,
right.
everybody.
Yes.